Well, welcome to another lore video, and Power Play has been delayed until the 31st, which is not only the Thursday morning maintenance, it's also Halloween. And we've got a treasure hunt 2 days early, essentially. Now, I don't know if this is the only Halloween event we're going to be getting, and maybe the reason why we've got it 2 days early is because Power Play is going to drop on Thursday. The Mandalay will be available for purchase with ARCs on Thursday, and perhaps with all of that to look at, having a Halloween event on top of that could be a bit distracting. It's just a bit overkill, too much for people to look at all at once. Perhaps that's early for that reason. But before we get into that treasure hunt, quick catch up on the news, because as we approach the Power Play update, the stories are ramping up a bit as we expected. And the first up was last week. The only survivor of the Azimuth experiments putting chips in people's brains and then trying to plug them into Thargoid ships to see if they could fly them. The only survivor of that who was left horribly traumatized by it, Shojin, formerly known as D2, now under the care of Aegis and a special advisor to the Aegis initiative. She suffered a significant medical emergency, some kind of seizure, incredibly high brain activity but out cold. Albertezro, head of Aegis, said that, yeah, the leak's unfortunate, but the news is true. She's confirmed the claims, and rather than let speculation and falsehoods grow about Shojine's condition, she's verified the rumours. She says that approximately 16 hours ago, Shojine experienced a tonic-clonic seizure. The convulsions stopped within a few minutes, but she's yet to wake up. The medical experts are looking at it and seeing if they can determine the cause. Until then, basically, leave us alone, don't distract us, let us do our job. And there's a bit at the end about how her insight has proved valuable to Aegis, but we're not sure about her level of involvement. It's never been fully detailed. Does it have to be? Is it a fault that it hasn't been fully detailed? The assault on Raijin happened and we took it down last week. They did slow it down. Last week they slowed it down over the weekend, and we thought maybe that was because they didn't want it going off Monday night and then, exploding on Tuesday at the same time as Power Play was due to drop. So they increased the difficulty to make sure it wouldn't get done by then. But then when Power Play was delayed for another week, they obviously decided to put the difficulty back to where it should be, and Raijin went down on Thursday morning, about an hour and 3/4 before the Thursday morning maintenance. So there is now only one Titan left. Rewards have now been added, they've been updated, so if you want your decals for doing your Titan bombing, they are now available in your livery section. Check them out. So Raijin is gone. Only Casio remains. Torben Rademacher, the new CEO of Azimuth, shows what has been described as characteristic insensitivity by saying that they should just kill off Shojine. As usual, completely denying their part in giving her the condition that she's suffering from, and just playing her up as a dangerous alien accomplice, spy, patsy, tool, however you want to phrase that. And Aegis have quite rightly told him to bog off, basically. And it's just as well they did, because a week later she woke up. After being in a coma for a week, she made a statement which she sent out to all the major news feeds. Abruptly, she woke from unconsciousness following a significant seizure a week ago. No long-term physical effects, and she's expected to make a full recovery, so that's good. And less than 2 hours later, she released a statement via the Icecast, and the raw footage was self-recorded and believed to have been made without Aegis's specific authorization. Anyway, she says, "I hate making these public announcements, so don't expect it to be good. But everyone keeps telling me how important I am to the war effort, so why not test that and see if anyone listens? There's something everybody needs to know. What happened to me wasn't an accident or an illness. Right before I passed out, there was a noise in my head. It was like somebody plugged an amplifier straight into my brain. I couldn't stop it, and it hurt like you wouldn't believe. It's still echoing in my skull somewhere, but more than that, I could feel it, moving through my consciousness. My memories rushed past me in a blur. I couldn't stop it. It felt like everything I've ever known, learned, or whatever, just spinning and spinning around. Even in a coma, I could feel it. The Thargoids have finally noticed my presence and tried to learn what they could about me. Which also means everything I know about humans. They scraped it out of my mind. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop it. I'm sorry. But I can still hear the Thargoid mind. I guess they're done with me. They're planning something now. Listen to Aegis, they'll do everything they can to fix this. And there's a bit of speculation at the end by the Imperial scientist who's seconded to Aegis, speculating that her implant may have disrupted an attempt by the Thargoids to take her over and control her like a drone. It is speculation, and I think they're playing on the idea that everybody's expecting Thargoid-controlled zombies to be around, and that's just a little bit of speculation that plays up to that expectation, but doesn't confirm it. Remember, even when scientists say things, it doesn't make them true, not without the evidence to go with it. The last mothership. Now that only Casio is left, Aidan Tanner is warning that it could throw some more curveballs at us. Nothing that we don't really know there or weren't expecting. We're fully prepared for the fact that it could throw some curveballs at us as Schrodinger's war continues. And finally we come to what I think is going to be this year's Halloween event. There might be another one on Thursday, and if there is, brilliant. But here it is. A famed treasure hunter that we've never previously heard of, Herman Colt, has gone missing. He's a prominent figure in the treasure hunting community, apparently. He's known for recovering several notable historical artifacts across the core systems. And he left the Frenis system 3 weeks ago with several other pilots. It's believed that his latest expedition sought out the final treasure of Captain Morrigan, and she was a pirate who was active in the mid-3200s, so about 60 years ago in game time. A colleague of his, Natasha Moore, gave some insight into his whereabouts and said it's unlike him to maintain radio silence during an expedition. Normally he loves the attention. Every new expedition generates buzz amongst the exploration community, with dozens of pilots begging to be taken along for the adventure. He's always had a soft spot for Captain Morrigan. I think he's already got some bits and pieces from her life on display at his home, and I know he was excited about this trip and the chance to find Morrigan's final treasure stash. But typically, he would have sent me an update by now. Hopefully he's just having too much fun on his latest voyage. Captain Morrigan was known for a series of daring raids between 3253 and 3261, with her gang often overpowering significantly larger forces to steal cargo from trade convoys in and around Frenis. Her most significant rivals belonged to the Kandira gang, and firefights between the two groups were common. She was last sighted in 3265, and it's believed she died in action around this time. So, our paper trail starts at Frenis itself. In the absence of anywhere else to go, it's the only lead we have. I'm in the Frenis system, and as I have been so many times before, I'm in my Asp Explorer, my beloved Clio, who may shortly be relegated to second place in my Explorer fleet when the Mandalay comes out. But I'm never going to stop loving this ship. It's going to be a bit of a wrench to let her go and not be using her as my main Explorer ship anymore. I've had many happy hours of playing and exploring in this ship. I've done over 2 million light years in Clio, and there's only so much you can do with the aesthetics of an Asp Explorer. The ship kit makes it look a little bit less blocky, and midnight black with the cobwebs has been my thing on this ship for quite a while now. Got those a few years ago. The cobwebs, of course, part of the Halloween spooky stickers, and midnight black when that comes out just before Christmas every year. And as I say, as a ship, she's served me well. Gets a little bit toasty because I'm using the double engineered power plant from the old Community Goal, which is armoured and overcharged, and so it does get a little bit more toasty than normal when fuel scooping, but you know, you just scoop a little bit safer, and with a big 6A fuel scoop on it, you're still filling up in no time. You're not really losing any time. You just got to be a little bit more careful. Just be careful to keep your distance and the shield. To get 70 light years out of this ship, I need to put a class 3 shield in, which makes it a bit fragile. Don't want to be hitting the ground too often on planets. And so the Mandalay will outperform the Asp Explorer in terms of range, in terms of being able to have a better shield, in terms of having a better selection of optional internals. So you could put a half decent shield on it and still take 2 SRVs and still get 75 to 76 light years out of it. Plus the superior SCO capability, the most stable supercruise overcharged drive seen yet. Slower top speed than in the Python or the T8, but that is balanced by the fact that it is more fuel efficient and should be absolutely perfect for getting to those far off bodies to scan them, land, look for biologicals, or just take a few screenshots, whatever it is you're doing out there. But the Mandalay, I am expecting to do everything the Asp can do, only better, in the same way as the T8 for the Python, except even a bigger step than that. I think the Supercruise overchargeability is going to be fantastic for people who are doing things like mass code searches and planet mapping and scouting for bios. The Mandalay as well should be a bit more agile and manoeuvrable. The Asp is okay, but it's a bit drifty. The yaw is terrible, and you tend to kind of make up for that with pitch and roll while trying not to hit the ground. The Mandalay has apparently got much more agility in normal flight and isn't drifty at all. So that'll be more precise. It'll go where you put it. It'll be quicker, longer range, more internals, more space. And the only thing it'll really lose out to the Asp Explorer in will be the view. The view of the Mandalay is very cleverly constructed. The cockpit is very clever, but it's not going to match the full screen, like full frame view of a Lacon ship, and particularly the Asp Explorer, which is one of the nicest views in the game, if not the nicest view in the game. And especially if you're in VR. I'm not, but people in VR have told me that, you know, the Asp Explorer's view in VR is second to none. And so the Mandalay will never beat it on that score, but it will beat it in every other way. I'm looking forward to putting it through its paces, but not without a tinge of sadness. But I will certainly continue to find a use for Cleo, because I love this ship. I've always loved this ship, and I always will love this ship. When you get into the Frenis system, this is what you're looking for. Captain Morrigan's Treasure, 1 of 6. It has the exploration tag, and you can find it by filtering for points of interest. And this is where the first of the logs will be. It's a listening post. And it looks like I only have to approach it. I don't even have to scan it with the data link scanner. There it is. The listening post. There don't appear to be any sub-targets on it. And it looks like every listening post we've ever seen on every treasure hunt. So this is all very familiar territory. And they've made it real easy by having the messages just pop up when you arrive, by the look of things. The name's Colt, Herman Colt. You've probably heard of me. Explorer, pioneer, and hunter of historical artifacts. The Benami locket on display in Anderton Global Museum? I was the one who recovered it. Kitty Cazelle's blaster, the one rumoured to have fired the first shot in the Alioth uprising. That's right, me again. I follow stories into myths and I bring them back to reality. The credits that come with such work aren't bad either. This time I'm taking some rookies on a simple little hunt. A good introduction to the career for them and a reward of great satisfaction for me. The treasure of Captain Morrigan. Oh, Morrigan. My muse, my light, born decades before me. Lost to the galaxy when I was still a child. But your story inspired me to become the man I am today, to bend fate to my will, just as you did. I finally have your star map in my possession. It took years of chasing whispers down many dead ends, but now the key to unlocking the truth of your famous journey is revealed. I'll retrace your vapor trail to the final known location of your hoard. What will it contain, my captain? I'm eager to find out for myself. My squadron consists of 4 hopefuls, excited to be joining the renowned Herman Colt on another historic discovery. Ahmed, Kovalchuk, Otero and Shanks. Who knows? Maybe they'll make something of themselves one day. Our first jump is to the Siusi system. Let the hunt begin. Well, yeah, not full of himself at all, is he? Okay then. Siusi, I think. Alright. Well, that's next. When you get in system, again, filter for points of interest and it comes up pretty much straight away. Captain Morrigan's treasure, 2 out of 6. Again, the exploration tag, telling you that this is story related, lore related. Incidentally, and just as an aside, while we're travelling to this one, I've modified my Thrustmaster throttle with the Panzer modification that replaces the slider with proper ceramic or metal sliders depending on your choice, and it makes a world of difference. The Thrustmaster throttle, which is pretty nice anyway but has been known to be a bit sticky, is smooth as butter with this upgrade. It took a couple of weeks to arrive from Canada and cost me about £30, but it was money well spent because it really makes the throttle feel like a completely new device, smooth as butter, ultra controllable, and you can even put a detent in the middle of it if you want to do forward and reverse and have a midpoint, which is of course missing from this throttle. And I'll put a link to where you can get one of those for yourself, but I really do recommend doing the modification if you've got a Thrustmaster throttle. It's very, very nice, and the fine control that it gives you, it's just very, very smooth. When you get to the second listening post, again, 2 messages just come up straight away. My squadron has reached Siusi with no issues. The aspiring treasure hunters with me babble excitedly on comms now our journey is underway. It reminds me of my youth somehow. Educational class trips to some museum or historic location, with teachers herding dozens of squawking children. The real ones were always better than the virtual. For now, my own squawkers are amusing enough while I wait for Morrigan's star map to calibrate our next location. Kovalchuk has a natural charisma and makes the others laugh. She at least shows promise. Shanks and Ahmed are more pedestrian, eager to follow instructions and hesitating to do anything without my order. Otero is, well, let's put it this way. Either he's so meek that his voice doesn't sustain the comms link, or so inexperienced that he doesn't know how to configure it. He keeps asking for confirmation on an order to return to our starting point. I haven't once suggested we turn around, so Otero must be tuned into a different channel. Siusi was where Captain Morrigan made her name. A daring raid on an industrial convoy carrying precious gemstones. Morrigan's small raiding party took on a security patrol, over double their number, and emerged victorious with a significant haul of loot. A quote from one of the haulage pilots states, "She destroyed 24 ships and positioned her craft nose to nose opposite me. I could see Morrigan smiling through a heavy scar across her jaw. She demanded our cargo and blew me a kiss as we jettisoned canisters worth millions of credits. Then the pirates were gone, leaving us surrounded by wreckage. I do wish I could have seen her crew in action. Where will you lead us next, Captain?" The second of the messages that you automatically get here is a corrupted message that needs decoding. Again, very familiar to anyone who's done any of these treasure hunts before, and to any of you who've been following my video series when I've been doing these. This is not unusual. I put a link in the video description below to Canonn Decryptor, so you can run these yourself and you can see how they translate. This has been encoded with a Caesar cipher with rotation 3, meaning that everything has been shifted along 3 places. And so when you decipher it all, it says, "Turn back while you still have a chance. You were never invited to the dance. Trespassers never reached Rurema." As in the last system, Siusi, I didn't have a system map, but don't actually need one. Again, it comes up as a point of interest, and none of these have been very far away from the stars so far either. You know, 200 to 300 light seconds, it's nothing. The third log then, we're on our way to that. At the third listening post then, another corrupted message which will need deciphering, and a third entry in the log. "We have arrived at our next destination. Otero is nowhere to be seen, not visually, not on radar. The buffoon might have jumped to the wrong system. Perhaps he just chickened out of the hunt, or were I to attribute him with one iota of cunning, he may have a different plan altogether." Shortly after we arrived, Ahmed sent a panicked message claiming someone had sent him a message with a warning to turn back. Not a request, not advice, a threat. As a fledgling treasure hunter, Ahmed doesn't understand the job's highly competitive. There are only so many famous figures to plunder. It wouldn't be the first time I've been trailed by a rival looking to throw me off the scent. I have my suspicions that Otero joined us to acquire as much information as possible before breaking off to disrupt us. Perhaps he has designs on Captain Morrigan's star map. Well, he'd have to take it from my cold, dead ship. A shame this issue has distracted us from the importance of this system. Here is where Morrigan met her soulmate, Noctule, at a wild pirate gathering. The legend says that Noctule challenged Morrigan to a dancing contest, and the two of them went song for several hours, long past the point that the other revellers had given up or drunk themselves into a stupor. With both exhausted, Morrigan asked Noctule what kept him in the contest. He replied that each song they shared represented a year they would spend together in love. Noctule must have been quite the charmer, since from that day on the pair were inseparable. The star map has calibrated. We push onwards. And the corrupted message. And this time it's a Caesar cipher again, but with rotation 2. Now there's an issue with this one, because when you translate it, it says, "Turn back before you spoil the grave. Those killers broke my heart that day. The victim never left 17 Ceti." There's no such place. There's a 17 Phi 1 Ceti system, but that's not the correct location for the next clue. And the reason for this is if you use a Caesar cipher with rotation 2 and it only shifts the letters, but you have to shift the numbers as well. Now when you shift the numbers, that gives you 2 possibilities. The individual numbers of the system name 1 and 7, shifted by the value of the Caesar cipher, in this case 2, would then give us 9 and 5. So actually the system that we want is a 95 Ceti system. Unlike the previous systems, with this one you don't get the point of interest showing up straight away when you enter the system. It's an unpopulated system, so there's no nav beacon or information automatically supplied to you when you jump in. Also, it's quite far out, around body 4, so it's about 2,000 light seconds out, so you can go to body 4, but you'll have to do a discovery scan and possibly an FSS as well. But the listening post that we're looking for is orbiting body 4. I've put a list of all of the logs and their locations in the video description below. Another corrupted one, and a continuation of the log, entry 4. Ahmed's ship has been destroyed. His Cobra was shot to pieces by the time he arrived, only a minute after he made his first jump. There's no sign of his assailant, no wakes, nothing. It couldn't have been Otero. His vessel didn't have the firepower to take down Ahmed so quickly, and I'd have found evidence of his jump. Someone else has to be tracking us. Ironic, really. This system is where Captain Morrigan's love, Noctule, was ambushed and killed by the Kandera gang, only 3 years after they'd met. So much for the romantic ideals of pirates. The killing was a targeted warning to Morrigan by the Kandera leader to stay out of their territory. Their response was a blood oath of vengeance by the heartbroken captain. Shanks claims he's received a garbled comms message telling him to turn back from this path, just like Otero and Ahmed before him. The boy's nervous, babbling about being next. He's even claiming that this expedition is cursed. Kowalczyk asked me to abandon the hunt, a request I refused. Now is not the time for nerves. If we're being hunted, it only proves that we are on the correct path. My remaining squadron has been informed, and I will blow them out of the sky myself if they attempt to jump anywhere but the star map's next destination. A harsh lesson, but one every treasure hunter must learn. The more danger you're in, the closer you are to your quarry. I will not be intimidated by superstitions. And the corrupted message. This one, again, sees a cipher, rotation 4, shifting all the letters and stuff 4 places. And when you do that, it says, "Turn away from my sweet embrace. Those killers died in beautiful ways. The last sculpture was in Tranyuwa." Again, when you jump in, the listening post doesn't show up. You'll have to FSS the system or do a discovery scan and then just visit each planet in turn. You're looking for body 5. As you approach body 5, the listening post will show up. We got another corrupted message and part 5 of the log. Again, they pop up automatically when you're within a kilometre of the listening post. No data scans needed. All 3 remaining ships arrived at this system. However, Shanks' ship is not responding to any comms and it floats freely away from the nav beacon. A visual inspection shows his cockpit is empty. Only Kowalczyk and I remain. I know where we are. This location marked the end of Captain Morrigan's vendetta ride against those who killed her beloved. Over several years, she tracked down and murdered each of the Kandera pirates responsible for the death of Noctule. Their final hours were both inventive and terrifying in every instance. Morrigan's focus on revenge was all-consuming, to the detriment of all other aspects of her life. This may sound strange, Morrigan, but I can relate. Your story has fueled me for so many years. I've researched every possible piece of information about your life. The credits I've spent on collecting any relic of your pirate career are beyond counting. Weapons, clothing, personal artifacts, maps, records of raids, private logs, authentic images, everything. Everything. There's a room in my apartment dedicated to your history, and I dream within it often. Do you now haunt me, Morrigan? Did I acquire so much of your life that I've summoned your soul to follow me on the trail to your final treasure? My obsession with you now reflected in a curse? If you can hear me, then know that I spit in the supernatural's gaze. Your eyes are long dead, and the last piece of your life will complete my collection. Your star map has finally deduced the location of your hidden riches. Watch as I take it for myself, you Hellcat. The remnants of the great Captain Morrigan's life will decorate my own legend. And fourth corrupted message so far. Caesar ciphers, all of these have been Caesar ciphers so far. This one, only rotation 1, shifting everything one place. And when you do that, it reads, "Turn back from my cursed soul. The only memory never sold. Shadows lurk in HIP 8344. Much like the second one, this has a system name with numbers in it. And this time, when you do that, the system name listed in the decoded message is 2,100 light years away, instead of the system name not existing. But if we do the same as we did with the other message, and we shift the numbers as well as the letters, we get a name that is much closer, and in this case we want to shift the values 8, 3, 4 and 4 by 1. This leaves us with 7, 2, 3 and 3. By searching for HIP 7233, we do indeed find a system that is closer. And as you get closer to the body, it will pop up in the nav panel with the telltale exploration tag to show that it's a story related item. And at the final listening post, we have the final log entry. If anyone's reading this, leave now, please. I'm Maya Kovalchuk. I was part of Herman Colt's expedition to find the treasure of Captain Morrigan. His last expedition, I guess. We'd followed a star map Colt had. The bastard threatened to destroy my ship if I didn't stick with him, even after the others were dead. He'd gone strange. By the time we got here, I mean. The closer we were to the treasure, the worse Colt got. Ranting and raving about seeing the captain, kept daring her to appear. It was like something took hold of him, something dark. But when we reached this planet, there was another ship. I can't explain it properly, but geez, this thing was there but not there. My scanners couldn't identify the stuttering energy signature. When we made visual contact with it, my canopy display must have caught interference, some kind of radiation maybe. The unknown ship was drenched in static. I couldn't focus on it. Every time I tried, these crazy distorted patterns would... Colt flew into a rage and boosted towards it. Hardpoints deployed. The unknown ship took off with Colt in pursuit. My God, the noises he made. I've never heard anything so angry. The comms channel peaked so hard I had to shut it off. For a second it sounded like two voices screaming together in hatred. When I finally caught up, Colt's ship was a wreck. He floated out of the ship's ruined canopy, strapped to his chair. It was horrible. His eyes were open. Rage still twisted his face, even in death. Listen to me. Morrigan's treasure is attached to this beacon. I ain't touching it. Take it or don't take it. But I swear this whole voyage was cursed. I worry about what will happen if you snatch the loot. If you've already taken it, then don't stick around to find out what happens next. Run. And there you have it. A curse? A ghost ship? Who knows? Little mystery for Halloween. And as a reward for following this paper trail, you get 40 million credits. You get the paint jobs, the Noctule Witch for the Cobra Mark III and the Anaconda. The Malevolent Ghast paint job, again for the Cobra Mark III and the Anaconda, and suit Cosmetic, the Trlckster Apple Set. So you two can wander around looking like a gone-off pumpkin, or one that isn't ripe yet. Okay then, another spooky story which had some nice ideas in there and a bit of fun for Halloween. Whether that's it, or whether we get something else on Halloween itself, which will be tomorrow by the time this video goes up, we will, as always, have to wait and see, but if we don't, then the Mandalay and Power Play 2 should give us plenty to keep us occupied as people experiment with both. I'll probably do another video quite soon, given the new content arriving tomorrow, after a couple of days of thrashing out how it all works. But to conclude this video, I want to go back to something I touched on in the news update, because the consequences of it are potentially massive, and may represent a long-awaited and highly significant shift in the Second Thargoid War. For a long time now, I've been saying that the Thargoids have been direct in their approach. Nothing sneaky or underhand, but in your face with everything they do. Up until now, they appear to have demonstrated no knowledge of our politics, our power structures, our social structures, our motivations, or anything psychological that we would certainly take advantage of if we found out anything like that about an enemy. Until now. Shojane may not be the Encyclopedia Galactica, but her knowledge of human nature and the fact that she's a highly intelligent person anyway would give the Thargoids plenty to consider and understand about human beings and what's important to them. And that means that psychological warfare is now on the table as an option. The attack on Shinrarta, although it didn't come from this reading of Shojane's mind, could be seen as a run-up to more attacks on places that are meaningful in some way to the human race. Of course, as I've also said before, they could have worked out some of that anyway just by observing where our ships go and identifying nerve centres where many ships visit or gather on a crude level, but the obvious message is that with this new knowledge, they will have a greater understanding of our strengths and weaknesses, and so become a greater threat, not simply throwing thousands of ships at us, but adopting a more subtle and targeted approach. But this is more important than just one possible consequence of it, derived by simply imagining the worst. For the Thargoids to have the understanding of us that Shojane now says they do, logically, that also includes at least some understanding of our language. The biggest barrier to getting any further has been that we don't know their language and they either don't know or don't care about ours. We're told by the lore that the Guardians worked out the Thargoid language but were ignored when they tried to communicate. That's not only become an article of faith to players, but many of them have taken it to mean that any attempt ever to communicate with the Thargoids is pointless. But that's very close-minded to me. We don't even understand them, and yet we know with absolute certainty that they won't talk to us because they didn't talk to a different species over 1 million years ago? Well, that's not arrogant, presumptuous, dismissive, belittling or patronising at all, is it? Perhaps they will decide to communicate with us this time. Perhaps, possibly through Shojane, Aegis or someone else, we will learn their language. If we can talk, we can negotiate. Whether we will or not is another story, but the potential is there to remove the mutual lack of understanding on both sides of the war, which has been the biggest sticking point in getting any further than a variety of hostilities. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.